Hello, and thank you everyone for joining us today. Thanks for joining for the Elevating Your Tool Chest and Bluebeam Review webinar. My name is Erin Lucian. I'm an industry marketing specialist here at USCAD, and I am going to be helping Ken out and moderating today. Ken Phelps is our presenter. He is joining us as well. First, a few housekeeping items. Today's webinar will last about 30 to 45 minutes. Everyone is on mute and listening mode only. This webinar is being recorded, and you'll receive a link to view that recording by about the end of this week. And then you can watch it again, share it with colleagues who aren't able to join us today, etc. And here's our agenda today. I'm just going to go through a few housekeeping items, tell you a little bit about USCAD, and then we'll kick it over to Ken. First, USCAD is a full-service AEC technology consultant. We've been in business for more than 20 years. We have over 130 employees in 10 offices across major metros in the United States. We also have people who are remote across the country, including both Ken and I here in the upper Midwest. We are headquartered in Irvine, California, and we offer best of breed AEC solutions with partnerships with Autodesk, Bluebeam, of course, Panzura, Leica, CAD Learning, and many others. You may have recently seen our announcement that USCAD is now formally USCAD, a VinZero company. We're part of an exciting new global brand alongside A2K Technologies out of Australia, CADline out of the UK, and Capricot out of India. As part of VinZero, we're working together towards a more sustainable future for a better customer experience for you, our customers, and for a more sustainable built environment. If you want to learn more about VinZero, you can visit vinzero.com. There's also information on the USCAD website, uscad.com, and you can join the Think community on the VinZero website. Now I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to Ken.
Awesome. Thank you, Erin. It may help if I share my screen.
Got it.
So a quick agenda to go through, just a 30-second blurb about myself, what I want to share with everyone today in the webinar, the main objectives for us, diving into the actual webinar itself so we can go through and see all the stuff I want to talk about. Then some Q&A. I'll try to watch the questions panel. There's a question section with the Zoom webinar here. You can ask whatever questions you want into it. I'll try to keep an eye on that and answer those when I can. Otherwise, all your questions will get answered. Like Erin said, this is being recorded. There'll be a link to the recording as well as any questions that you submitted in. I will go through a spreadsheet kind of form to all those questions and answer all of them just in a textual list that you can go back and refer back to. And I'll ask just a couple of slides on next steps, how to get out in touch with us and what might be coming up next as far as upcoming events to go through. So a little bit on me. I've been around the industry for, going on almost 25 years now. Been since 1998. I've been with various resellers helping people install everything from AutoCAD, get trained in AutoCAD up through the Bluebeam software now. This is my sole focus right now within USCAD. I specialize in Bluebeam review. Top to bottom, inside and out, this is all I do for the company. So if you got questions on that, by all means, reach out and ask. So there's three main things that I want to share with everyone today. There's a lot more details to it than just what these little three PowerPoint little bits here can share, but primarily is how do you make a custom tool chest set, the various ways that we can add content into it, and then how do you share that content with the team. Now, the main part to me of this middle one here is the way that we can go through and create content and add it to that tool chest. And then some ways that we can use some of the other options within the tool sets that are there to help elevate that entire use of your tool chest in the entire company. So it's not just something that makes you better, it makes everyone better. So let's just dive into it. I want to go into the software here. Again, I don't plan on doing anything via video or whatnot. I'm going to keep that pretty low key. I don't want to have anything too much overwhelming here. I'm going to turn off my camera here too, so you're not distracted by my goofy mug. So within Bluebeam Review, I'm using the Review Advanced profile. So if anyone feels to try to follow along, whatnot, if you go to your Review Advanced profile, it'll look kind of like what I have here. And the focus for this month to look at it for this webinar is our tool chest. Ways we can add content to that, share that with the team, get everyone on board the same basic platform of information throughout the entire company. So one of the first things inside of here is, how do you make your own? So you have a bunch that are here out of the box, the architect review, contractors, so forth. I want to make one with my own content in it. So at the very top of the tool chest, you can select on that. You got manage tool sets. So each one of these items that are here is called a tool set. This whole panel is your tool chest panel. So inside of your manage tool sets dialog box, you can click add in the lower right corner. It's going to ask you for a title, and this title here is what shows up and displays on this upper bar for that tool set. So what's the name of that tool set? What do you want to call it? So versus just giving it like, tool set 1, 2, 3, give it some meaning, some context to the types of tools that you want to have stored within it. Versus just being called Bob's tool chest. What's in it? Is it measuring tools? Is it common types of stamp style content, symbols you might reference? Is it for wiring, plumbing, ductwork, whatever it may be for? Give it some actual meaning to it. So if I want to go through and do, I don't know, how about measurement tools? So in there, I want to put tools that would be tied to things I want to measure. I want links, I want areas, counts, whatever it might be to leverage within that tool set. It's going to prompt me for a place to save it. It should default to where the rest of your tool chest sets are located. You don't have to store it here. This is just where it defaults to. Now it does show up here at the bottom. If you want to reorder that, you can just simply move it up the list. On this left-hand side, I have my blue arrows here. I can move this up or down. I can see on the left-hand side, that tool set I just made is moving up inside of that panel. And also from here, if there's ones that you're never going to use, you can uncheck them so they're not displayed to maybe distract you from the right tools that you want to leverage. And you can select them and choose the red X here to just remove them from your profile. It won't delete that tool set from like your drive where it's been stored. It'll delete that tool set from within the current profile that you're trying to access and leverage. That's maybe one of the pieces to kind of point out when it comes to the conversation around sharing, is that the way that you organize and create these tool sets can be tied into your profile. So you may want to go through and create your own, either a department or a company profile first, then flesh out the interface and the tool chest as part of that process. So I got my measurement tools towards the top. So how do you add some content into it? So I'm going to grab just a file. This could be any random file that you want to reference. This could be a blank sheet. It depends on what you're trying to create and how you want to leverage that into your tool chest set. So in this case, I want various measurement tools. I want different ways to get lengths and areas and quantities, volumes, whatever I might be after for measurement process to go through. So for this, the general premise around trying to leverage this is just to use the tool on your PDF and then customize it to have the right properties it needs to take on. So in this case, I'm going to grab just my poly length measurement tool. Use it someplace on the PDF itself. That's good enough for what I want to have. What about this do you want to change? Do you like the color? Great. If not, change it. Do you want the values being displayed? Yes or no? Do you want to change the line type being used? Maybe this is for a specific use case. I want to trace out the gas line being brought into some facility. It's coming from the street, going through some route. I want that overall gas line distance, whatever it's going to be used for. So for that, I'm going to change then the line type, that style being used, to include what it's being measured. I'm measuring a gas line. I'm going to have it just state the word gas inside of that line type. Other options here too, again, like I mentioned, is color. Do I want that to be red, blue, green? What do you want to have that take on for the actual property set? Maybe the gas line, I'll have this be this orangish kind of color being used here. just go down the list for the options that you have for that item. In this case, for a measurement tool, I'm not worried about the segment value. But it makes, steps up and down, right, left, what have you. I don't need all the individual legs to be displayed on there. I may not even want to have the overall. All I want to have is just to draw out where the gas line goes. It's still going to track the value. Just because it's not displayed on the sheet doesn't mean it's not still tracked down here. So my measurement is still here. So if I use the gas line in 18 different places on the PDF, the overall total will still be here down below. And as you leverage it, it's still going to add it up. Now, one of the big things that you make sure that you change is the subject. What is this measurement of? There's a number of ways to go through and kind of handle and manage this, but what I typically would have you try to do initially is to be very specific with the subject. This is gas line. Is it 1 inch, 2 inch, 3/4 inch, whatever it is you're trying to measure, give it some details as to the exact properties of what that's supposed to be for. I'm going to just call this, I can't spell, gas line. That's all I need. I got the right color, the right line type being used, all the right properties that I want to have assigned to it. I can then add this now into my tool set. There's a few ways to go about doing that. At the bottom of your properties panel, you got add to tool chest here. Then you just choose which tool set that new feature should be a member of. You can also simply right mouse click on top of the markup you have. You've got add to tool chest. Same idea. You choose which tool set that this new item should be a member of. Now, if you do have your properties toolbar turned on, that's mine here towards the very top, this secondary row of icons that I have. On the beginning side of that, we've also got add to tool chest from here. There's at least 3 ways through some buttons and menus. You can also, if you have your recent tools enabled and that tool chest set is turned on, it's right here. It's the last thing that you use in that list. I can just simply drag from that down into my tool set to copy that over into this one. So you have 3, 4 different ways to add the content from your PDF into the tool set to be saved and then held onto for use later. But just so you can kind of watch me do it, I'm going to right mouse click, go to add to tool chest, and choose the new measurement tools I just created. That may be hard to see on screen, but it's hanging out right here. Now, the one downside to this method of using it from either the properties panel, the right click menu here or whatnot, is that it's going to be an exact copy of how that tool was initially created, how it was drawn on the PDF. So if I select that to add it in, it looks just like the first one I had before. More than likely than not, it's not going to be used that way every time you add that onto the PDF that you're trying to review and add these markups to. So this is in what's called drawing mode. The way it was drawn is the way it's saved. I want to swap that out to properties mode. So same properties, same name, color, all that kind of content to it. But I want to leverage this any which way I need to on the PDF. One of the fastest ways to do that is just simply double click the icon. So a little thumbnail view of that changes. Now, one of the benefits you have of bringing in the tool from the recent tools panel versus from the menus is that it comes in this way in the default properties mode automatically. So if I take this tool from here, just drag it down to this one, it's already in my properties mode versus the right click from here brought it into my tool chest in drawing mode. Neither one's right or wrong. It's just what you need to be aware of with what's going to happen when you add that tool to your tool chest set. So I don't need 2 of these. I'm going to delete my secondary one I dragged in here. So now with that tool added, I can leverage this any which way I want. It's going to add in that same line style I chose, the right colors I had assigned to it. Then again, down below, it's going to tally up all those links I have added into the PDF. So I have my gas line. I have an overall 178 plus feet of gas line needed for this one. So that's just one of the ways to go through and add content to the PDF. Use the tool. And then customize that tool. Add it to your tool chest set. It's all that that process really entails. It's just that same routine over and over and over again for the various ones that you want to make. So I'll go through it just one more time real quick. But maybe this one I'll use for an area. So an area measurement placed somewhere here on the PDF. And where I'm choosing for this is kind of secondary. The volume, the range, the scope of that doesn't really matter too much. I'm just building out the base tool first. Now again, properties. What type of area measurement am I trying to look for? Is it going to be, here's the square footage of tile that I want to have, or here's the area of concrete being poured, something along those lines. All of that content is becoming part of that subject that you want to have. In this case, that area is going to be, I'll just say it's carpet for lack of a better example to it. Same thing, change the properties. What do you want to have for this? It's going to be green, blue, orange, pink. Make it match the way you want to have this particular tool look. Maybe this one's going to be more of a cyan like green shade here. Fine. And this I will have the color turned on for, or the text for the value inside of it. You might even have a fill. I've got a highlight type so I can see behind it. Of course, green on green, not ideal. I'll change my fill opacity. Just has a little tint of a shade to it, so it kind of stands out a little bit. That's good enough for me for how I want to leverage the carpet tool for square footage. So again, define all the properties to it, and then save it into your tool chest. Once it's over here, if you did with my method I just shown, with the right click, add to tool chest, just double click the icon. So it has then the properties mode versus the drawing mode. Now, as you flesh this out, you might have 19 versions of things using the poly length tool. It can be hard to discern one from another in this icon style display, the symbols being used here. You can change this display to what's called a detail mode. So on this little gear icon on the corner of that tool chest set, go to detail, and now it shows the subject next to the icon for it. So if you have the condition where you have gas line, there's 5 versions of that. Now there's sizes A, B, and C being used for that. You can have a better clarity to understanding which one you're selecting versus trying to guess. I think the blue one's the 3/4 inch, and then the red one's the 1 inch. Just change that display. Also, by giving it a subject down below here, this is what helps you go through and collect all the values and sort and filter and have the content displayed to organize the information more appropriately. So now if I add in, say, my area tool I just grabbed, so areas here and area there, it groups these together down below so I can get the totaling done right for me for each one of those measurements because I'm sorting by the subject. I know exactly how much carpet versus hardwood flooring versus tiling. If I have those tools set up for area measurements, it'll collect those and group those based on subject, based on what you're sorting off of. Other way to go through and create content and add information into your tool chest, it might be for a symbol, say like my door I have here, for example. The little valve that's down here. Just draw it up. So if I want to just simply draw in some new shape to be used here, it can be leveraged for whatever makes the most sense. I go and just simply grab a rectangle, whatever size that has to be. I'm going to draw a line coming across here. So in my example here, I have 3 different objects that make up this symbol. So if I were to go into the process of taking this symbol as it is and adding this into my tool chest, I'm going to have 3 separate items in my tool chest, 1 for each line and 1 for the rectangle. If I want to have just 1 symbol, I need to make this 1 symbol first by just simply grouping that together. Now with it grouped, it's 1 item versus 3 separate items that make it up. But same approach. You still want to go through and adjust your properties, change the subject. Now, when you group, make sure you change the subject after you've grouped it. Otherwise, you will have the subject of the name of the tool that made that. In this case, it was the grouping function that made this kind of envelope looking kind of symbol that's here. Make sure you change your subject. I've been bitten before where I've changed the subject on the rectangle to have it call out some kind of a valve or a wall stud or whatever it's going to be leveraged for. And then I group it and I lose that because the grouping name doesn't take on the properties of what's beneath it. So make sure you change the group here. Call this really fancy name of new symbol, whatever makes the most sense of what you want to call it. And same thing, however you want to add this into the tool chest, you can take it and drag it and drop it right here from the recent tools, or like I'd shown before, to add it from your tool chest this way. Now that symbol can be added into any PDF I want to leverage in the future. Now it can be just basic text. I want to have just a basic text note. I want to keep that. Maybe you've typed out some long paragraph why a certain inspection failed or some code requirement for what you have to have for conditions to be successful in building this project. Whatever that notation has to be, you can type it once and then save that into your tool chest. So next time that same condition comes up where you're reviewing a set of plans going, well, no, that failed because of this again. You can take that note and just simply place it where it belongs on the PDF. I don't have to retype this ever again. And same as before, make sure you have all the right properties. You have all the right content for color and whatnot, the way you want to have the note look. Just define all that up front. Save the tool into your tool chest. This is one of my favorite areas of the software, is this tool chest. There's so many ways to leverage this just to make your process so much more efficient. It's a little crazy. So some other pieces that can come into play, ways that you can take your tool chest and even elevate it a little bit. So if you have like certain size symbols, say for example, my design symbol's one down below here. I have a door. Well, this door was meant to be placed on a specific scale size plan. This one symbol is not going to work on every scale plan PDF. It's for a given size. I'm not sure what size this was meant to be used for, but what you can do is for all the symbols on a particular tool chest set, let's say all those came off of an 1/8 inch to a foot plan. You can take and then set the scale for all the tools in that PDF to reference that 1/8 inch to a foot. So if it's ever used on something other than an 1/8 inch to a foot plan, it'll scale up and down for you automatically. You're not forced to have 9 flavors of some block here, so it has the right corresponding size to match the scale plan that you're working on. Let me show you what I mean. So what I want to have here is, I'm going to just assume the base scale for this is 1/8 inch to a foot for the symbols being used here. It may not be, but it's good enough for the example being shown. I'm going to then have 2 different scales on the PDF to show how it's going to scale for you automatically. So to set that baseline scale, go to the same gear icon here on the end. There's a set scale option, about 1/3 of the way down. And the idea behind this is that you're setting the base scale for all of the symbols on that tool set. So you want to make sure that all the symbols that you're adding to that tool set are of the same original scale. This is one of the pieces that you shouldn't ever have to need to change this once it's been applied. You set your scale to whatever it has to be. I'm just going to go to the presets and just say, yep, it's going to be 1/8 inch to a foot. That's my baseline scale for this. So with that enabled, there's a little triangle here. It has that blue highlight behind it. That means I have a scale set and the scale is currently enabled. You can simply disable that by just clicking the icon. Now it no longer has the blue highlight behind it. The scale is no longer being looked for with those tools. Just the way it was drawn, the way it was saved in your tool set is the way it's going to be inserted into the PDF. I'm going to turn mine on. I'm going to show you something here where I want to have a different scale just someplace else in the PDF. I'll just choose the region right about here. So this area here, I'm going to make that a different scale. So the whole intent behind the viewports for this is a way to have two different scales of content on the same sheet. So you have like some large full-size style view, plan view, section, highlight, whatnot. It's 1/8 inch to a foot. You have a section or a detail that should be a different size, quarter, half, 1 to 1.5, whatnot. I'm going to choose the quarter. So everything inside of my blue shaded area here is a different scale than the rest of my page. So when I insert this symbol, you see here it's this size. Now as I move into that space, it doubles it because the scale is a quarter versus the baseline 1/8 that the tool is assigned to. So this will take care of trying to adjust the size of the tools simply based on the scale you have in the sheet. Now this will work if the entire page is set to a different scale or just a region of viewport like what I have here is of a different scale, but it's going to adjust the size of those symbols to match the scale accordingly. This alone can save you a lot of frustration and headache. Saying, well, I brought the tool in, but it's the wrong size. You can grab corners and you stretch it and try to modify it after the fact. Those are never accurate. So just set the scale. And ideally what you do for this then is that you'd never have to change this. You have a scale set. It's set to an 1/8. That's the baseline size for all the tools inside of that tool set is 1/8. If you don't want that, if somehow that's messing up what you want to do, just simply click the icon here to turn that scaling feature off. Then however it was set up and created is the way it comes in. That's how big that's going to be once inserted. If I turn it back on again, use the same tool, now it's this much larger. And now it's looking for the scale. A different way to go about adding content into your tool sets is to just steal it right off the PDF. So I don't want to go through and reinvent the wheel to redraw some content. Say, for example, I need the sink, whatever. I need to have that content as an item that's inside of my tool chest. I can just capture that data, modify it to have whatever properties it needs to have, and then save it into my tool chest. I'm going to grab my Snapshot tool. It's just the letter G is the default shortcut for that. This is what I want. Is this data right about here? Close enough. That's now copied to my Windows clipboard. I'm just going to paste that back in here. I need this in here when I put it in my design symbols. Like everything else, go through and adjust the properties. Looking at subject, it's the name of the tool that was used to make it. In my case, it's now Snapshot. I want to call this Sync. Now, in this case, to show as more of a markup focus, doesn't look like it came from the architect with that content this way. It looks like it's a true markup from whomever is reviewing it. I want to change the color of this data. It has this bolder black line being used. That needs to be a red line. It needs to be red content. So in properties, you can choose change colors, or if you want to, you can right mouse click. It's on the right click menu as well. Change colors. So this routine here is just a matter of find me X, my source color, and change it to Y, my destination color. So find me all of my black lines, change those all to red lines, and OK. Now I have the right subject, call it sync. I have the right color assigned to it that I want to have. I can now add it into my tool chest. So add this into, I'll put it in my design symbols here as well. So now I have that sync hanging out right here. I can then reuse that on other files downstream. This method of basically just copying it right off the PDF can be a great way to populate like your entire block library, say, for example, from AutoCAD. I've seen folks will go through and just make a new AutoCAD drawing file and insert all the various blocks into it. Just print that to PDF. then steal the content right off of there to build out your tool chest sets with that same information. So if you're missing some details, it's a fire hydrant, it's a street sign, it's a sink, it's a window, it's whatever, you can just grab it from your existing libraries in your tool chest set and drag it into your PDF you're trying to review. Now, other items that you have access to do, ways to kind of, again, elevate the process around your tool set. As you can have whatever symbol you need, also be a count symbol. So this will be useful for when you're trying to go through it. Well, here's items X, Y, or Z. How many do I have in my plan? Counting up and doing your takeoffs of the PDF itself. Make whatever symbol you need. You can draw it with multiple pieces to it. Draw it up like I did that box before in my new symbol here. This could be a count symbol instead. So it can be as detailed or as simplistic, as generic as you want to make it. It can still be a count item. So it's hard to really tell the difference between these two, but this one has this little kind of a tick mark option down below. It should match my actual count tool symbol up here. I have my upper right. This is now a count measurement feature. I can leverage that and just start clicking away and saying, here's a bunch of counts. Now, the one downside for this routine is that since I copied this new symbol to a count symbol, it made a new generic name to it. Just count measurement. You can double click this and call this, new symbol count, whatever name that you want to assign to it, have it be appropriately tagged for what you're trying to count. So just one additional update you have to do to have the right naming to it. But that can be used for anything. Anything that you want to populate into this can be made into a count symbol. Another option you have too is that you can create some of these tools to be what's called a sequence. Meaning as you insert the first one, it may have like a number 1 on it. You go to the second one, it goes to 2, 3, 4, 5 for you automatically. So let me just kind of show you what I mean. So if we do a quick text box here, I'll call this 1. Why not? I'll do a rectangle around it. Good enough. Group these together. Add this into my tool chest. So this one, I didn't change my name. Let me change the name here quick. Call this sequence. Now, it currently is not a sequence. It's just a 1 with a box on it. So I can just drop this in, it's all it's for. Even as it sits, I can still come into here and double click the text where it's got 1 and change that to a new number. So if you do group up multiple items, if one of those items is a text string, it's still modifiable after the fact, and it's still going to be grouped together. So it's still one symbol here. I don't have it broken up into 2 pieces. But what I want to have happen is that I want to go through and have each time I place one of these in, it goes from the current count to the next one in the sequence. So 2, 3, 4, 5, and so forth. So I can then create a sequence. So if I define that, what styling do you want to have? Is it 1, 2, 3? Is it ABC to have? So you choose what makes the most sense to have for the style of numbering scheme you want to follow. Is there a certain prefix or suffix? I've seen people leverage this for like RFI tags. They might have like the RFI as the prefix, then the actual latter half of that is RFI 1, 2, 3. And as you just drop those pieces in, it'll sequence and just index the number up for you automatically. Where do you start? Is it going to go 1, 2, 3? Is it 1, 5, 10, 15? What is the increment to it? A big one here is the couple options down below. One being this renumbering. So what this means is that if you were to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 being dropped onto your PDF, but then you pull out number 2, does the 3, 4, 5 shift down to be 1, 2, 3, 4? Or does it just simply leave 2 out? It goes 1, 3, 4, 5. So if you're trying to go through and like tag your markup saying, well, here's markup 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to reference as you do reviews later, you want to have, markup number 5 be always markup number 5. So you may or may not want to have this to remove the gap that's missing or not. That's up to you. Then the last thing here is to reset either by page or just for the document. So if I use this same tool on page 5, page 6, page 7, does it maintain where I'm at in the sequence? So if I'm on number 6 on this page, I jump to number 7 on the next page. Is that 1 or is that 7? So you pick and choose how you want to manage the numbering scheme inside of this. So once I've made that tool into a sequence, it may be hard to see on screen. There's a little, almost like a plus or a play symbol down here. So as I use it, it goes from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 across the way. Now I can leave the tool. I just escaped out of it. I can go do something else. I go and grab my gas line. I drop that back on here again. Now, if I pick the same tool up again, notice this little play button down here kind of has that little yellowish orangish tone highlight to it. If I pick it again, it goes right to 5, 6, 7. It picked up where I left off automatically. Now to reset it, one of the ways to do that is to click the little icon in the corner of the symbol. That shading goes away, that kind of that highlight, that yellowish orange tone. Now it goes to a normal kind of black and white symbol. It's starting over again. So if I click that one, it's back at 1, 2, 3 as you start. Now for something like this, right, maybe I come back in tomorrow. I want to pick up where I left off with my sequencing I was doing previously. Any one of these you can select on and right click and choose to resume the sequence. And I'll pick up wherever it left off last time. So I left up at 7, I'm at 8, 9, 10. So with the scaling and the sequencing, those are a couple of ways to go through and just elevate your use of the tool chest. Now, one of the last things I want to go through and hit on, I could probably talk about this for the next hour and a half, but is just sharing this content with the rest of the team. So as you build out your tool chest sets, what I would recommend that you go through and do as you do this is make sure you go to this little gear icon and you click save every so often as you go through and do it. Because that first time that I made this measurement tools tool set, that's making the initial, call it container, where the tools are going to be held. Nothing's been saved into that file as of yet until I choose save here. So if my PC dies, the software crashes from whatever strange reason, I would lose all the effort I put into this. That's not saved unless you choose save here. You can also go to your review menu, go to profiles, and just save the profile. Does the same thing. That might be easier as you're going through and making a lot of custom tool sets. You might have a dozen different tool sets of various tools inside of there. Just save the profile, saves everything. Versus going into one gear, clicking save, go to the next gear, click save, down the list. If you have several of those, that's kind of tedious. Just go to your profile option, go to your profiles here, hit save off of that menu, and you'll save all your effort. Now for sharing this with the rest of the team. So you put the time and effort to build this content out. My coworkers need this stuff too. It's not just me. So a couple ways to share this with the rest of the team is on that same little gear icon is an option here for export. This will take that file for that tool set and allow you to save it someplace that's centralized that everyone else can see and access. It's a network drive. You want to drop it into an email to the team, however you want to get it in their hands. This gives you a method to place it somewhere, to have whatever vehicle you want to use to share it. You can leverage that. You can also go into your managed tool sets, select the tool set that you want to pull out of here. So you choose the name of it, and you have export here as well. So another means to go through is put it in some centralized location that the rest of the team can access. And again, you can go through and share the entire profile if you wanted to as well. But it doesn't have to go by one. So if you've made multiple tool sets here versus sharing each file individually. Maybe you want to share the whole profile. Now, be a bit more cautious with sharing the entire profile because you're getting everything with how your toolbars are laid out and how you got your panels described, profiles, how you have the interface as well. It's not just a tool chest. This also ties into the whole markups list. This will be a whole separate conversation for a future probably webinar, is the markups list down below. But custom columns and whatnot tie into your profile as well. So a couple ways to go about sharing that content with the rest of the team. I'll see if I can't look at a few of the questions that have come in here. We only have a couple of minutes left, so I won't have too much time to review the questions directly here and answer them. But again, I will be looking at all the questions that were submitted, and in the email that you'll receive with the link to this recording, be also all the questions that were asked and responses to all those will be inside of there too. I did see one quick one about not having the gear icon for their tool sets. This should be here for all of those. What you may want to do is maybe just widen the panel so it's a little bit wider, but that gear should stay visible at all times. Also, just simply change your profile. Swap out to a different profile and then come back to the one that you want to leverage and see if that does reset anything for your display. It can be kind of subtle and minor process to go through, but I've seen just doing that, swapping profile out and back, can kind of re-kickstart the environment to have the right look and feel that you're anticipating. So for kind of next steps for us to look at is just to reach out to us if you got more questions, something you want to get some more hands-on or personal Q&A of the content I've shown so far, other questions that you may come up around the software, just reach out to us. If you want a demonstration for your team directly on certain features here, be it about the tool chest or just Bluebeam in general, just reach out. But what we also have coming up next for what we're taking part in, the CFMA, that conference comes up in Atlanta. That's the 14th to 18th, part of the whole Design Build Institute. That's in Denver, the State Highway and Transportation meeting, that's in Dallas. Then next month, I'll be going through a Bluebeam review presentation like this that's tailored towards just an overview of Bluebeam review for the civil engineers and designers, that field. So thank you all for taking your time today to attend. I got my email down there at the bottom, just a general email for USCAD access. If you've got questions on Bluebeam. So if you want to take a second to jot that down, feel free to reach out if you got time. Otherwise, thank you all. Have a great rest of your day.